I'll do anything you ask. Just please save my sister." Those desperate words still echo in Sayel's mind as she crosses the threshold of the grand, foreboding estate. To save the only person she has left in the world, she agreed to a deal with the devil himself, the great duke whose name is whispered in the capital only in blood-chilling legends. They say his body is cold as ice and his heart knows no mercy. But Sayel had no idea that her role in this house would be far stranger than anything she could have imagined. "Your task is simple," comes the cold, deep voice from the half-darkness of the opulent bedroom. "You must warm my bed." Sayel freezes, a shiver racing down her spine. She sees him, Archduke Cassian. He sits in an armchair, wrapped in an aura of absolute authority and concealed pain. His gaze pierces straight through her, stripping away any remaining will to resist. The girl understands. There is no turning back. As she slowly approaches, the air around them seems charged with electricity. Cassian extends his hand, and his fingers brush her wrist. Sayel flinches. His skin truly burns with cold, as though she has touched a corpse. "You're trembling," he states calmly, and a strange, hungry spark flares in his eyes. "Are you afraid?" I will fulfill my duty," Sayel whispers, trying to steady the quaver in her voice. She realizes she has stepped into a golden cage where the price of her sister's salvation is her own life and the warmth of her body, which now belongs to this enigmatic man. He draws her closer until she is caught in his icy embrace. The violent contrast between her flushed, burning cheeks and his deathly chill is dizzying. In that instant, she understands. Cassian is no ordinary man. He is a cursed being, starved for something he has never possessed. And now she alone has become his only source of warmth, of life. Despite the icy atmosphere of the estate, morning brings Sayel face to face with the harsh reality of her situation. She wakes in the enormous, luxurious bed, but instead of warmth, she feels only the lingering chill soaked into the sheets. Cassian is already gone, leaving behind an oppressive silence. Sayel stares at her palms. They still burn from the night spent beside him. She understands. To him, her body is nothing more than a living heater, a tool to sustain his existence. In the corridors, the servants look at her with sticky pity or thinly veiled contempt. She survived the first night. Fragments of whispers reach her ears. Sayel forces herself to keep her back straight. She is here for her sister, and that single truth is the only thing keeping her from fleeing this crypt. Suddenly, the head housekeeper summons her, a woman whose face might as well have been carved from stone. She delivers strict instructions in a flat voice. "You are not to ask questions, you are not to touch the Duke's personal belongings, and most importantly, never look him in the eyes when the moon is at its zenith." Sayel feels her stomach twist. The rules multiply while answers remain scarce. During the day, Sayel accidentally wanders into a locked conservatory. Among the wilted flowers, she sees him. Cassian stands with his back to her, shoulders rigid with tension. She freezes, afraid to breathe, but he senses her presence without a single word. "Why are you here?" His voice is quieter than usual, threaded with an unfamiliar rasp. I just got lost," Sayel stammers. Cassian turns, and for the first time, she sees his face in daylight. He looks exhausted. Deep shadows pool beneath his eyes. In this moment, he doesn't resemble a devil so much as a man slowly drowning in his own torment. But the instant their gazes meet, the mask of indifference slides back into place. "Your time is at night. Leave," he cuts off sharply. Before Sayel can retreat, she notices something on his neck, a strange, frost-bitten mark creeping beneath his collar, like slowly spreading ice. She realizes then, his curse doesn't merely make him cold, it is devouring him from the inside. That night, when she approaches as ordered, Cassian looks even worse than he did by day. His skin has taken on a deathly pallor. Every breath rasps painfully from his chest. Without preamble, he pulls her close. Sayel lets out an involuntary cry. His hands feel like twin blades of ice against her skin. "Warm me," he whispers, burying his face in the curve of her neck. "Your heat, it's the only thing that keeps winter from freezing solid in my blood." Sayel goes still as she feels her own body temperature begin to drop, pouring itself into this glacial being. She wraps her arms around him, not out of fear anymore, but from some strange, aching compassion. Beneath her palms, she can feel his heart beating slowly, heavily, like a pendulum slowly icing over. Suddenly, Cassian wrenches himself away, his eyes, usually cold and calculating, now flooded with raw, primal agony. He tears open the collar of his shirt. The frostburn she glimpsed earlier now glows with dull blue light, cracks spiderweb across his skin, pulsing. "Get out, now," he snarls, shoving her back with enough force that she stumbles. His body begins to shake violently. Sharp ice crystals materialize in the air around him. Sayel understands he is losing control of his power entirely. Yet, instead of fleeing, she notices an overturned pitcher on the table. The water inside has already frozen solid. If she leaves now, Cassian might simply freeze to death inside his own manor. "I can't leave him like this, even if he is the devil," she thinks, taking a deliberate step forward into the raging cold. Despite the mortal danger, Sayel refuses to retreat. The ice shards in the air scrape her skin, her breath plumes in thick white clouds. But she sees Cassian writhing in pain, clutching at the glowing cracks on his neck. His power has turned against him, transforming the room into a deadly frozen trap. "I said I would save him, and I wasn't lying." Sayel throws herself toward him, fighting through the howling ice wind. She cups his face in both hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. Cassian's gaze is clouded, wild with madness and bottomless cold. But the instant the warmth of her palms touches his cheeks, the chaos pauses for a heartbeat. She presses her entire body against his, giving every last drop of her heat, feeling her own limbs grow numb and heavy from the cold. Cassian draws in a shuddering breath. His arms clamp around her like she is the last rope in a frozen sea. Slowly, the magical glow in the cracks begins to fade. The storm in the room dies away. Ice crystals chime softly as they fall to the carpet like fragile glass. They collapse onto the bed together, both breathing hard. Sayel feels utterly drained. Violent shivers rack her body. Her lips have turned blue. Cassian slowly returns to himself. He looks at the exhausted girl in his arms, and for the first time, something like horror, not hunger, flickers in his gaze. "You foolish woman," he whispers. His voice no longer sounds like cracking ice. "You could have died." "But you warmed up?" Sayel manages a shaky smile, even as her teeth chatter. Cassian says nothing. Silently, he pulls the heavy fur blanket over her, and against every rule he himself set, does not send her away. He stays beside her, watching as exhaustion finally claims her and she falls asleep. In that quiet moment, he realizes a terrible truth. Her warmth has become a drug he can no longer live without. And now, woven into that desperate need is a dangerous attachment, one that might destroy them both. Sunlight filters through the frost patterns on the windows, finding Sayel in a strange, dazed stillness. After last night's storm, the room is wrapped in ringing silence. She realizes Cassian is still here. He didn't vanish with the dawn as he usually does. The Duke sits on the edge of the bed, back rigid, eyes fixed on his own palm, the one that had touched her so desperately through the night. "You're awake," he says. His voice is dry, stripped of its former metallic cruelty. Sael pushes herself up, pulling the heavy fur blanket tighter around her shoulders. She feels an odd lightness laced with exhaustion. Faint red marks linger on her wrists, the imprint of how tightly he gripped her in the dark. Noticing her gaze, Cassian abruptly yanks down his sleeve, hiding his hands. "What happened last night must not happen again," he says sharply, rising. "My power is unstable. If you decide to play the hero once more, I cannot guarantee there will be anything left of you but an ice statue." Sael opens her mouth to protest, to tell him she saw his pain, but the familiar mask of arrogance is already back in place. He summons the servants. The stone-faced housekeeper enters with a tray. Today, though, it holds not just breakfast, but a strange, steaming herbal brew that fills the air with a sharp, medicinal scent. "Drink," the Duke orders curtly. "It will restore your warmth. I have no intention of letting you die of a chill before you fulfill your purpose." As Sael takes a reluctant sip of the bitter liquid, she catches the housekeeper's quick, worried glance. It seems everyone in this house knows far more than they ever say. When Cassian leaves, the housekeeper lingers for a heartbeat and whispers, "You must not grow too close to him, my lady. The more warmth you give, the more the curse will demand. It is insatiable." Sael freezes, cup still in her hands. The word lodges in her throat like a shard of ice. She understands now her body is no longer merely a heater. She is becoming part of a ritual that slowly drains her life to prolong his. Yet the thought of her sister and the memory of how Cassian looked at her last night with such raw, desperate hope refuses to let her despair completely. Sael stares at the closed door for a long time, the housekeeper's warning echoing in her mind. Insatiable. The word sits cold and heavy in her chest. But there is no time to dwell. Servants arrive bearing an exquisite gown of deep wine velvet, heavy and luxurious. It seems Cassian has decided that today she will appear not as a mere guest, but as a true resident of his frozen castle. They lead her to the dining hall. The vast space is lit only by flickering candles. The long table groans under platters of untouched food. Cassian sits at the head, absorbed in documents. When Sael enters, he lifts his gaze. For one fleeting instant, something like admiration sparks in his eyes. Then it is ruthlessly extinguished. "Sit," he says, indicating the chair to his right. "We will have a guest today, Marquis Adrian, my personal physician, and the only one who truly understands the nature of my affliction." Sael sits, feeling goosebumps race across her skin at his nearness. Not from cold this time, but from the strange electricity that now constantly hums between them. Soon the doors swing open. A man enters with a fox-like smile and piercing eyes. Adrian does not bow. He approaches Cassian like an old friend, which startles Sael. But the moment his gaze lands on her, the Marquis's smile turns predatory. "So, this is your little heater?" he says without preamble, stepping far too close to Sael. "Remarkable, so fragile, yet still breathing after last night's surge. Cassian, are you quite certain she'll survive the next stage?" Cassian's fingers tighten around his goblet until fine cracks spiderweb across the crystal. "Your role is to monitor my condition, Adrian, not to test her endurance." The Marquis only laughs. Then, to everyone's shock, he seizes Sael's wrist, pressing 2 fingers to her pulse with clinical indifference. His touch is dry and fever-hot. Across the table, Cassian's expression darkens instantly. The air in the room plummets. "Fascinating," Adrian murmurs, ignoring the Duke's fury. "Her core temperature is unnaturally high for a human. Cassian, it appears you haven't merely found a warmer. You found the perfect counterpart for the frozen heart ritual. But you do remember what happens at the end of that path, don't you? One of you will be reduced to ash." Marquis Adrian's words hang in the air like frozen needles. One of you will be reduced to ash. Sael's heart stutters. She looks to Cassian, waiting, hoping for denial. But the Duke is silent, and that silence screams louder than any protest. His jaw is clenched so tightly, the muscle twitches. Dark shadows pool in his eyes. Enough of your theatrics, Adrian. Cassian shoves back his chair. The screech of metal on stone cuts like a gunshot. Did you come here to treat me or to prophesy doom? Adrian spreads his hands in mock innocence, smirk never fading. From his satchel, he draws a strange device, a glass sphere containing a cold blue flame that pulses like a living thing. I came to warn you. Your curse is no longer dormant, Cassian. It has scented fuel. He nods toward Sael. Look at her. He holds the sphere near Sael. Instantly, the blue flame inside flares vivid crimson, battering furiously against the glass walls. Sael feels an answering heat surge in her own chest. Her hand flies instinctively to her heart. She absorbs your cold, Adrian continues, voice now stripped of mockery. But she gives too much in return. If you continue sharing a bed, within a month, her heart will simply burn out. She will combust from the inside, trying to keep you from freezing. The hall falls so silent, the dying candles can be heard sputtering. Cassian rises slowly and walks to Sael. His glacial aura no longer feels threatening. It feels almost shielding. He studies the delicate pulse at her throat, and in his gaze, guilt and hunger twist together. I promised her her sister's salvation, he says hoarsely, more to himself than to Adrian. I never intended what? To make her your sacrifice? Adrian claps him on the shoulder. You have no choice, old friend. Either you draw her warmth to survive and crush the rebellion in the Northern Territories, or you become an iceberg that buries the entire kingdom beneath it. Cassian seizes Sael by the shoulders and pulls her to her feet. Go to your room. Lock the door from the inside. His fingers burn through the fabric of her dress. Sael sees the blue cracks already spreading again across his hands. The curse is demanding its toll now. She understands. If she leaves, he will spend the night in unimaginable agony. Yet, she does not move. Despite Cassian's order and the physician's chilling warning, Sael cannot force herself to move. She watches the Duke barely holding himself upright. The blue cracks on his hands now glow brighter, thick plumes of vapor escaping his mouth, even though a roaring fire burns in the hearth. Cassian no longer looks like a powerful devil. He looks like a man trapped inside a cage forged from his own ice. I said I won't leave you, Sael declares firmly. She ignores Adrian's warning glance and steps towards Cassian. The instant her palm touches his shoulder, a wave of cold sweeps through the hall, snuffing out half the candles. Cassian flinches. His body goes rigid like a drawn bowstring. Leave, he growls through clenched teeth, yet his fingers betray him, clamping around her wrists, instinctively seeking the salvation of her warmth. Marquis Adrian only shakes his head, watching the scene unfold. The mockery has vanished from his eyes, replaced by cold, clinical fascination. Look at that! The bond has already formed. The curse no longer simply draws heat. It has tethered her soul to yours, Cassian. If you push her away now, the inner fire she's accumulated for you will burn her alive from the inside. Sael feels her heart slam into a frantic rhythm. An unbearable heat floods her chest, demanding release. It's as though a small sun has ignited inside her, and only the Duke's glacial hands bring relief. Then we have no choice, she whispers, looking straight into eyes that have turned nearly transparent from the magic of ice. We either die apart or we live together. Cassian yanks her against him, burying his face in her hair. He stops fighting. In the silence of the hall, only his ragged exhale is heard, along with the soft chime of frost falling from his clothes. Adrian quietly gathers his instruments. I'll return in a week, the Marquis says from the doorway.
If by then you haven't learned to balance this flame and ice, start ordering 2 coffins, one of ice, the other of ash. Cassian scoops Sail into his arms and carries her almost at a run to the bedroom. In the corridors, lamps gutter out. Frost trails behind his footsteps like living shadows on the walls. The moment the heavy oak door closes behind them, he pins her against it, staring down at her with a fierce, almost violent tenderness. "You heard him," he rasps, pressing his forehead to hers. "I'm killing you. Every time I touch you to save myself, I steal your days. Why aren't you running?" Sail feels her skin literally melting beneath his icy breath, yet the sensation doesn't frighten her. On the contrary, her own inner sun, the one the physician spoke of, surges outward, desperate for escape. She takes his hands and presses them to her chest, right over the wild hammering of her heart. "Because without you, this heat will turn me to ash," she answers, meeting his gaze unflinchingly. "My sister is alive because of you. My life already belonged to duty, but now it belongs to you." Cassian kisses her, and it is no ordinary kiss. It is the collision of 2 opposing elements. At the point where their lips meet, tiny sparks of steam flare in the air. Sail feels his cold pour into her lungs, cooling the unbearable blaze inside her. For the first time in years, Cassian tastes not mere relief, but actual life. They fall onto the bed, entwined into one being. That night, Cassian does not try to control the curse. He lets it flow freely. Yet, instead of draining her, he begins to share his own power. Sail watches the blue cracks on his body slowly shift hue, turning molten gold, while a faint glow begins to shimmer across her own palms. By morning, the storm has passed. Sail lies against Cassian's chest, listening to his heart beat steady and strong for the first time. She notices a strange mark on her shoulder, a snowflake emblem with a tiny flame trapped at its center. "What is this?" she whispers. Cassian traces the mark with one finger. Sail feels a pleasant warmth bloom beneath his touch. "A contract of blood and soul. You are no longer merely a heater, Sail. You are my weakness and my only anchor. Now, the Emperor and his Inquisition will hunt not just me, but the one who holds the key to my heart." The morning quiet in the manor feels deceptive. The mark on Sail's shoulder pulses in perfect time with Cassian's heartbeat. She can feel his unease through her skin. The Duke stands at the window, already dressed in his severe black uniform that conceals both scars and magical cracks, yet his aura hangs heavy as a thundercloud. "Messengers from the capital have arrived. The Emperor has learned that the storms around my estate have ceased. He is not a fool, Sail. He knows I've found a way to stabilize the curse." Sail rises, smoothing her dress. She feels a new strength coursing through her. The inner fire no longer threatens to consume her. It flows through her veins in a steady, warming current. But isn't that good news? If you're stable, you can serve the Empire. Cassian whirls, eyes flashing like shards of ice. The Empire has no use for a healthy duke. It needs a weapon it can control. While I was locked inside my own cold, I was harmless, but now that I have you— He pauses, stepping close enough to brush the mark on her shoulder. "You are my failsafe. If they take you, they can force me to destroy any kingdom they choose, or simply kill me by depriving me of your warmth." A sharp knock interrupts them. Adrian bursts in, his usual smirk gone, replaced by raw alarm. "Cassian, it's not just messengers. They've brought the Holy Inquisitor. They demand to examine your servant. Rumors are spreading that you're using forbidden blood magic to survive." Sail goes pale. She knows the Inquisition shows no mercy to those suspected of heresy. Cassian steps in front of her. The temperature in the room instantly plummets below freezing. "Let them try to enter," he hisses through clenched teeth, yet his fingers betray him, clamping around her wrists, instinctively seeking the salvation of her warmth. "No!" Sail seizes his arm. "If you fight them now, it's as good as a confession. We have to play by their rules, until we find a way to escape." Cassian looks at her. Monster and man war in his gaze. He knows she's right, yet the thought of those people laying their torture instruments on her skin is enough to drive him to madness.